Hello everyone, welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about something truly powerful: emotional stability. You see, a person with stable emotions is truly remarkable, because when everyone else around them falls into negativity, that person has the ability to pull others out of it. On the other hand, if someone cannot control their emotions, then even if you handed them the whole world, sooner or later, they would destroy it all. When you fail to master your own moods, you inevitably become a slave to them. So today, let's explore together how you can develop emotional stability and free yourself from negativity. In psychology, there is a fascinating concept called the wild horse effect. This means that what defeats us is not the event itself, but the emotions that rise from it. On the African plains, there's a type of vampire bat that clings to wild horses and sucks their blood. No matter how fast the horse runs, no matter how furiously it reacts, it can't do anything about the bat. Sometimes multiple bats attach themselves, and some horses even die in the process. But here's the discovery: the amount of blood the bat actually takes is very small, not nearly enough to kill the horse. The real reason the horse dies is because of its own panic, anger, and exhaustion as it runs itself to death. In our daily lives, we are often controlled by the very same wild horse effect. For example, you argue with your partner in the morning. That ruins your mood for the whole day. At work, you become irritable, maybe even clash with clients. By the end of the day, you've achieved nothing but frustration. That's why we need to pause and ask, when faced with a negative situation, is the problem really in the event, or is it in our emotions? The key to managing emotions is awareness. There's also a concept I've shared in a previous talk called emotive force. To put it simply, it means not being overly sensitive to everything and not rushing to judge. Slow down a little. Because today we're constantly bombarded with information, most of it complicated and overwhelming. If you're too sensitive, you'll get lost in emotional confusion. So, we need to learn to simplify. Emotive force is both a skill and a practice. Few people can live without understanding everything, but we must not let our emotions dominate us. Remember, events themselves cannot crush us, but our emotions can. In life, we'll always encounter people who dislike us, criticize us, or say unpleasant things. At that moment, what you need is emotive force. Listen, let it pass, and move on. Don't cling to it. Keep eating, keep resting, keep living as usual without being disturbed. Here's something important to know. The natural lifespan of an emotion is only 90 seconds. During those 90 seconds, it feels uncontrollable. But if after that time you're still drowning in it, that's because you chose to extend it. For example, if anger or sadness hits and you don't recognize it, you may sink deeper, and then it lasts for minutes, even half an hour. Some people even enjoy making decisions at the peak of emotions. It feels liberating. But let me assure you, in more than 95% of cases, you'll regret those decisions. So when negative emotions rise, try this. Stay calm. Don't act. Don't decide. Speak less. Think less. You don't need to show everyone who you really are, and you don't need to constantly explain yourself. It's unnecessary, because people only see what they want to see anyway. Personally, I find myself explaining less and less. If something doesn't affect my well-being, I don't bother. Even if someone spreads false things behind my back, I don't waste time correcting it. Because those who trust me will believe me naturally, and those who don't, well, they won't change their mind no matter what I say. So remember this: stability is strength. Events don't destroy us, our emotions do. Learn to master them, and you'll never again be a slave to negativity. Let's begin with something very important: trust. Those who trust you will always believe in you. And for those who don't, no amount of explanation will ever be enough. So, be yourself. Don't let unnecessary people create unnecessary emotions within you. There's a story often told about two men walking through the African jungle. Suddenly, they encounter a lion. One of them immediately kneels down and begins tying his shoelaces. The other looks at him, confused, and says, "Why are you tying your shoes? We can't possibly outrun a lion." The man calmly replies, "I don't need to outrun the lion. I only need to outrun you." Now, this story might sound a little dark, but it carries a powerful message. In the same situation, one person may fall into negative emotions, while another chooses a calmer, more strategic way of thinking. Why is it that truly capable people rarely let emotions control them? Someone once said, "Look around you. Among all those who are quick to anger, none of them are wise. Their lives are usually filled with chaos." Never allow yourself to be consumed by anger, because every fit of rage begins with foolishness and ends with regret. Talented people have only one goal: solve the problem. If their first method doesn't work, they change their approach and try again. They don't let emotions push them off course. Why? Because emotions never solve problems, emotions only create more of them. Here's the truth: no one can control your emotions except you, unless, of course, you refuse to forgive yourself. Every person has their own story, their own scars, but what separates people is whether they've learned the art of control. Pythagoras once said something profound: anger begins with madness and ends with regret. Think about your own life. Haven't you also faced situations that stirred frustration or resentment? In those moments, you must learn to let reason take the driver's seat. Take a simple example: a minor accident on the road. Two cars barely touch. Instead of calmly resolving it, one driver starts shouting, raising his voice louder and louder. Deep down, he feels that unless he lashes out, he'll somehow lose face. What's happening here is not wisdom, it's a biological reaction, a primitive reflex from our ancestors. When danger appeared, you either fought or fled, fight or flight. That same reflex still lingers in us. So when anger or fear takes over, everything you've learned, your education, your values, even your common sense suddenly disappears. You regress to the state of an animal. But here's where awareness comes in. You must remind yourself: don't lose the one inheritance your ancestors also left behind, the ability to control. Because the truth is this: choosing anger is another way of choosing escape. Instead of facing the real issue, you run away from it. Now, let's take this into communication. There is a high-level technique called emotion-free communication. Let me share a story. A child and his mother go to the park. The child wants an ice cream. The mother buys one, but moments later, the child drops it on the ground. The mother gets upset and scolds him. "Why can't you hold things properly? I just bought it." But the child looks up and responds wisely: "Mom, I know I made a mistake, but why can't you speak to me calmly?" That response, so simple, so innocent, reflects emotional stability. Many of us misunderstand something important. We think that adding more emotion to our words will make others understand us better, but often it does the opposite. That's why a new idea is spreading widely on the internet today: the concept of serene comfort. Sadly, many people don't have it. For example, when traveling, some forget to pack a few items, and immediately, their emotions spiral. Instead of enjoying the journey, they lose their sense of peace. The lesson here is clear: calmness, clarity, and self-control are not weaknesses, they are signs of wisdom. Sometimes in life, we forget to book a flight, or a hotel is fully booked, and suddenly it feels like the world is collapsing. But the truth is, the event has already happened. All you need to do now is find a solution. And most of the time, the problem isn't as big as you think. Remember this: never let your anger grow larger than your ability to handle the consequences. If you don't have the strength to clean up the damage afterward, don't indulge in reckless emotions. There's a story told by a professor in class. He shared a funny joke, and the whole class burst into laughter. A few minutes later, he told the same joke again. This time, only a few students laughed politely. Not long after, he repeated the joke once more. This time, no one laughed. The classroom fell silent, and students began to wonder if something was wrong with the professor. At that moment, the professor said slowly, "You cannot laugh again and again at the same joke. So why do you keep crying again and again over the same sadness?" Think about that for a second. Anger is using someone else's mistake to punish yourself. Worry is using your own mistake to torture yourself. And what hurts you the most is not the knife others put into your heart, but the way you keep pulling that knife out, staring at it, and stabbing yourself with it again and again. That repetition, that cycle, is the real suffering. So the lesson is simple. Keep walking forward. Let the pain fall behind. Don't live trapped in yesterday's wounds. There are two powerful mental shifts that can help you free yourself from negative emotions. The first is the future-oriented mindset. Think about the times you felt deeply hurt, perhaps a breakup, betrayal, failing an exam, or losing a job. Whether big or small, when you look back now, how much of that pain is still alive in you? Very little. That is the strength of looking forward. So next time you feel upset, ask yourself, 10 minutes from now, will this still matter? 10 days from now, will it change my life? 10 years from now, will it even matter at all? The answer is almost always no. When viewed through the long lens of time, almost every problem shrinks into something insignificant. The second is the survivor's mindset. Since childhood, we're taught to strive harder, to compare ourselves with those better, and to ask, why not me? But sociology studies show most people focus on the 10% chance of failure instead of the 90% chance of success. It's like having $100 and losing 10. Instead of appreciating the 90 still in your pocket, most people obsess over the 10 they lost. And so, even though the situation is the same, different mindsets lead to completely different outcomes. When negative emotions appear, shift into the survivor's perspective. Think, I still have more than I've lost. That is how you build positivity and happiness. There's also a beautiful story about the Buddha. One day, while walking through a village, a young man angrily confronted him. The man insulted him, calling him useless and foolish. Yet the Buddha remained calm. He asked the man, if someone buys a gift but the other person refuses to accept it, who does the gift belong to? The man, puzzled, replied, of course it belongs to the one who bought it. The Buddha smiled and said, you are right. It is the same with your anger. If I do not accept it, it remains with you. If you want to stop hurting yourself, you must learn to master your anger and replace it with love. Because when you hate others, you destroy yourself. But when you love others, what you receive in return is also love, and with it, happiness for everyone. This story teaches us that the real challenge is not that we can't control emotions, it's that the price hasn't been high enough yet. Human beings only learn when the loss is too great to ignore. If you still haven't learned to control your anger, maybe it's because the cost hasn't hit hard enough. But sooner or later, unchecked emotions demand a price. For example, uncontrolled anger could cost you your job. It could cost you your marriage. It could cost you your peace. So remember, it's not the situation itself that destroys us, it's our emotions. And the sooner we learn to control them, the less of a price we'll have to pay. In his famous book, Thinking Fast and Slow, the author explains that the human brain is divided into two systems. System 1 is intuitive, emotional, and impulsive. Most people rely on this system because it's the brain's default mode. It consumes less energy and feels natural. System 2, on the other hand, is logical, rational, and requires much more focus and effort. That is why so many of us react impulsively. It's simply easier. But successful people are often those who can rise above their natural instincts and operate from logic and reason. So, how can we learn to control our emotions better? The truth is, if you've never had to pay the price for losing control, you'll never learn to master it. But if you've suffered real losses, you'll gradually discover the power of restraint. Here's what you need to remember. Whether you are an employee or an entrepreneur, you don't just belong to yourself. You belong to your company. You belong to your customers. Many problems in life and work don't actually come from communication skills, they come from uncontrolled emotions. If you fail to master your emotions, even something good can turn into something bad. And when you fully understand that anger can bring irreversible damage, you'll begin to control it. There's one very simple method that can immediately calm your anger. When you feel rage rising, just nod your head gently. That small physical gesture reduces emotional intensity, and suddenly, you'll feel more able to accept what's happening. Someone once said, if something affects your emotions, the focus should not be on the person who triggered them, but on your own ability to control yourself. Emotional stability makes you more rational. It helps others feel safe and comfortable around you, and most importantly, it builds trust. But let me ask you, do you believe that your state of mind can change your destiny? There's a powerful story about a businessman who once rose from nothing to wealth, but later, he lost it all. Devastated, he felt life had no meaning. One night, ready to end his life, he walked to the river. There, he saw a young girl sitting by the water. He asked her, "Why are you here so late at night?" She replied, "I came to jump into the river. My boyfriend broke up with me. I love him so much. Without him, I can't live." Hearing this, the businessman couldn't help but laugh. He asked her, "But before you met your boyfriend, how did you live?" The girl was stunned. Then she suddenly realized, yes, before she met him, she was still living her life just fine. She decided not to end her life after all. Then she turned to the businessman and asked, "Why are you here tonight?" He smiled and said, "Oh, nothing. I'm just out for a walk." In that moment, he too realized, once, he had built everything from nothing, and now that he had lost it all, it simply meant he would start again just like before. And indeed, he did rebuild his career from scratch. The lesson is clear. When faced with the same situation, different mindsets create completely different outcomes. Remember, this mindset is the fastest way to change your destiny. Life will always bring unexpected losses. A spilled drink, a lost wallet, a broken friendship, a partner walking away. In those moments, tell yourself, I must accept this. If you can smile, do so. If you can't, then at least stay silent. Don't give unnecessary attention to things you think are too important. Because here's the secret. If you don't dwell on them, they lose their power over you. Who can hurt you? Life is not always chaotic, but there are people who choose to panic, and there are people who choose silence. You don't need to pretend that you're doing perfectly well, because honestly, very few people truly care whether you are or not. Everyone is just an ordinary person, trying to live their own life. So here's the truth. It's enough just to live your own life well. Money lost can always be earned back. A job lost can always be found again. Friends lost can be replaced with new ones. A love lost can always appear again. After all, life itself begins from zero, so why should we be afraid of starting over? And if, before going to bed, you can forgive everyone, then when you wake up in the morning, you are reborn. Let me share a story with you. There was once a chubby little boy. His friends often teased him, and every time they laughed at him, he would get angry and start a fight. His mother, heartbroken, went to see his teacher. The teacher advised, "Why not just ignore them? If they laugh, let them laugh. Why do you need to care?" But the boy answered, "I can't stand it. They can't just keep mocking me like this." So the school invited a psychologist to help. The psychologist gathered the boy and the group of kids who teased him. He said, "We're going to play a game. In a moment, you can mock him as much as you like. Say anything you want, but no hitting. And as for you, young man, if you can endure the teasing for 5 minutes without getting angry, you'll win 500 dong. But if you get angry, then they will win." The boy's eyes lit up. "If I win, I'll buy myself a bicycle." The group began their cruel teasing again. "You're so fat. If you sit on a bike, the wheels will explode." The psychologist laughed and said, "Well then, he can try. But remember, if he gets angry, you not only get to tease him, you also get the money." The game began. The group threw every insult they could think of, but the boy only clenched his teeth and kept repeating silently to himself, "It's okay. I won't get angry. I'm going to win 500 dong." 5 minutes passed. The others grew tired of mocking him. The boy did not get angry. He received his 500 dong. The psychologist smiled and said, "Now, let's upgrade the game. This time, the prize will be 1,000 dong, but it will last 5 days. If you can go 5 days without getting angry when they call you fat, you win." But this time, the group of kids refused to play anymore. They realized they could no longer control him. Time passed, and the psychologist told the boy something he would never forget. "You have the right to be angry when something truly hurts you, but I want you to know this anger is also a choice. To be angry or not, that's for you to decide, not for others to decide for you." That simple experiment changed the boy's life. It didn't mean he never got angry again, but he understood that anger was his own choice. From then on, his weight was no longer something that troubled him throughout school. It was a brilliant experiment, because the truth is, we don't need to try to change whether people tease us or not. What we can change is the way we face their teasing. You have the right to be angry. You have the right to feel sad. You have the right to feel pain. But at the same time, you also have the right to live happily. In the end, it's all a matter of choice. There is no absolute right or wrong, it's simply whether you want it or not. Those who can control their emotions are often the people with the highest level of self-awareness. And self-awareness, my friends, is what gives you the power to live free, strong, and unshaken by the noise around you. There is no time to indulge in unnecessary emotions, because those who are wise know how to distinguish what truly matters. Instead of trying to change others, they choose to change themselves. People who live with dignity and balance understand what it means to let go and to forgive. They no longer waste energy disputing trivial matters. If someone says the air tastes sweet, they simply smile and nod, not because they agree, but because it has nothing to do with their life. Rather than arguing, they choose to appreciate what truly deserves to be cherished. Those who are not controlled by their emotions are no longer naive or weak. Within them lies a powerful inner strength, something deeply admirable. But why do you often feel angry? It's because you are too harsh, too demanding, and too obsessed with perfection. Now, perfection in human character is not necessarily negative. But what does that perfection mean? It means you constantly expect high moral standards from others. And if someone fails to meet those standards, you become angry. Yet we need to remember, all the noble qualities of human character are meant to be demanded from ourselves, not to be used as a measuring stick to judge others. Those who strive for emotional perfection are often strict with others, but not equally strict with themselves. We always expect others to meet our needs. We impose our standards on them, trying to control how they act according to our expectations. And when they refuse to be controlled, when they inevitably disappoint us, anger arises. For example, when someone doesn't respond the way you expect, you may feel their words are unreasonable and get upset. But in reality, it has nothing to do with what they said. It's about the expectation inside you, the picture you painted of how they should have responded. But here's the truth. If you had no expectations, no matter how they treated you, you wouldn't feel angry. That's why, instead of criticizing and trying to change people, we must learn to release our own expectations. We also need to learn how to express anger, instead of letting anger control us. Sometimes you will feel genuinely upset, but you can still express that anger in the right way, without blind outbursts. I once saw a business owner who was clearly angry, yet he calmly told his partner, "We agreed on this in the contract, but you violated it twice. This makes me very upset." He didn't shout. He didn't lose his temper. He simply expressed his feelings directly, and that is a very powerful thing. Because only when emotions are stable does wisdom have the opportunity to appear. Only then can the mind function effectively. Losing control of emotions is not about anger itself, it's about impatience. Emotional stability does not mean you never get angry. It means you only express anger when it is truly necessary. Don't be the kind of person who gets irritated at everything. Expressing anger isn't wrong. Just don't do it impulsively. Pause, breathe, stay calm, and then respond in the best possible way. Understand this: when you explode in anger, you are being provoked, influenced, and controlled by others. But when you express anger consciously, it becomes a boundary you set for others. That, my friends, is extremely important. Because if we cannot control our emotions, our relationships, both family and social, will suffer. That is why we need to learn to stay calm, rational, and conscious in our expressions of anger. From a psychological perspective, here are 5 principles to remember. Number 1. Unless you allow it, no one can truly hurt you. Number 2. When you feel pain, change yourself, instead of trying to change others. Whoever suffers must change. Number 3. The emotions of others are not your responsibility. Do not over-involve yourself, and do not carry the weight of their feelings. Number 4. Thoughts are not facts. When you feel upset, observe your thinking carefully. This alone can help you. Number 5. Emotions are temporary. They will not last forever. Accept them, feel them, and they will naturally fade away.